Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's show. At the moment, there is no Paul or Callum on. I'm sure they will come shortly. But we want to talk about what's going on in Ireland. 1 million new immigrants coming in. I'm not sure how they're getting split. I think, we've got somebody in. Mr. Rimmer.
Better late than never.
Right, but we are live. Actually, we are live right now. I'll just go through one of our policies, our dual nationality policy. NHPUK campaign to end the right to have dual nationality in the UK. Having dual nationality is a conflict of interest for business, the military, and politics. Every UK citizen with dual nationality will be expected to choose which nationality is most important to them. Citizens who choose to keep their own non-UK passports will have to settle in that country, whatever they want to stay in. And there is other countries around the world that have this like policy. The only exemption will be for Ireland because of its historical links to the UK, which is part of our UK mainland, or the UK land. But thank you, everyone. Good evening. This is John.lawwrence. Paul Rimmer's here with me.
Good evening, folks.
So, Ireland, poor Ireland. Poor Ireland.
Ireland. The ancient island of Erin goes back a long way, Ireland. When the Ice Age retreated, John, that's, I know, 15, 16,000 years ago, people came to these islands, they were called originally, and they settled here, the original settlers. First, they southern Britain, Wales, then they crossed over into what was called Little Britain by the Romans, Ireland, Merva Britannia. We were Magna Britannia, they were Merva. And for over 12,000 years, people just moved around these islands, lived in all different parts, same culture. In that time, the Celts arrived and they imposed their culture on the whole of these islands. And the only division came when the Romans appeared, 100 AD. And they set up an administration in England and Wales, what we call today. They called it Albion. They tried to conquer Scotland. They failed. They traded with Ireland, but they said Ireland was too cold. They called it Hibernia, which just means winter. It was wet and it was cold. But a lot of Irish people worked in Roman Britain. People don't realise that.
You carry on, Paul.
Yeah. I'll just give you this little overview of the history. And then when the Romans left, the Irish started invading Roman Britain, carrying off slaves, including Patrick, who became their saint. So the British, faced with these Irish slave takers, invited Saxon mercenaries to come and fight alongside them. But the Saxon mercenaries became so strong that eventually they started to overwhelm the Britons. And eventually they took over England, what became England, Anglesey. Of course, the Danes were involved, and the Vikings raided Ireland big style. They set up new settlements in Dublin, Limerick, Waterford. Most of these major towns in Ireland were actually founded by the Vikings. And again, it was for slavery. They were enslaving the Britons and using the Irish as slaves, the Gauls. But we go back a long way, the British and the Irish. We're really one people, separated, I would say, by religion and politics, but we're the same people. We all like a cup of tea and a pint. We all like a bit of football, or they like Gaelic football as well. And we all have a great sense of humour. I love the Irish because we all have a laugh together. But and the Irish, John, you're probably aware of this, absolutely love Liverpool. They come to Liverpool all the time to party. And they say they have the best laugh in Liverpool. And we used to have a great St. Patrick's Day in Liverpool. We still do, actually, to a degree. And then everything began to change in this country. Everything began to change. And then we've had these various waves of immigration. And, of course, England now is, I don't know, what percentage are third world immigrants in England now, John, or the descendants? It must be quite high.
I'm not sure, but it'll have gone up vastly in the past 20 years, vastly.
It's gone up in the past 20 days, never mind, not 20 years. They come in on the boats and the trains and the planes, and if you go to John's hometown of Oldham, it's like part of, where is it, John? Part of Bangladesh or Pakistan or whatever.
Yeah.
Same for Blackburn, same for Bolton, same for Bradford, as we all know. Bradford would be a big city in Pakistan, a big Pakistani city. Birmingham is another city overwhelmed. And of course, London, our great capital city, since the 80s has been totally transformed. You go to London now and you rarely meet an Englishman, because the guy who runs the place, Sadiq Khan, is Pakistani heritage. And the guy who's in charge of the whole nation, of course, a wee man called Rishi Sunak, is 100% Indian. He hasn't got a drop of British blood in his veins. He loves California and he wanted to live in California, but he's ended up staying here and he's now running the whole show.
He's got his green card. He won't be staying. He'll be off when he's done his prime ministership.
Well, the Irish prime minister is named Varadkar. Again, another Indian name. This time it's Sikh, I think, in origin. So in Dublin and London, we're ruled by these foreigners. Now, up to 1997, there was very little immigration into Ireland. I mean, I went to Ireland in the 1980s, and to be honest, it seemed a little bit backward to me. It was very poor at the time, but it was just an Irish place, you know. But when I went back in 2017, it had been transformed. Dublin had become a big cosmopolitan city, like a mini London almost. A lot of money poured into Ireland from the EU and from these global multinationals who were given low tax to locate in Dublin. And Ireland had this amazing asset, John. What's the amazing asset that Ireland has?
Potatoes.
No, the English language. If you can speak English,
of course,
you're plugged into the whole international network. And so international firms set up in Ireland. Once the troubles were over, there was nothing to be concerned about. And Ireland flourished, became a very wealthy country per capita. I mean, most of the money belongs to the multinationals and at the top end of society. But Ireland was doing really well. And then in 1997, they started opening the floodgates for immigrants, Africans. Heck of a lot of Nigerians turned up on an island, little island. These people from Nigeria, which now has a population of 220 million people, turned up at this little country called Ireland and plugged into the welfare system. And the word got round. Ireland was just like Britain, a soft touch. And so they came over. They came over from Pakistan, like in England, from Bangladesh, from India itself, from the Middle East, from North Africa, from Sub-Saharan Africa. And Ireland began to change, especially the cities. And people started to get a bit worried, but it was so prosperous. They didn't really howl with protest. There were parties emerging saying, look, this is a new plantation. See, the Irish have the language of the British plantation of Ireland. They said, we're being taken over here. We've got to do something about this. We're only a little country. The population of Ireland was no more than 3.5 million, but because of immigration, it's surged. It's now like 5 million people. But the Irish didn't have a political party to turn to. A lot of the Irish people turned to Sinn Féin. And Sinn Féin was like an alternative voice, come down from the north and said, we'll speak for the ordinary Irish people. But they didn't. They were globalists. They'd already been bought by the European Union. So when Britain left the European Union in 2016, Ireland became much more wedded to Brussels. Brussels started to take control. And Brussels demanded open borders. Let the whole world in. And man, did they come to Ireland. And little Ireland became a different place. You go to Dublin now, it's just a global city. It's like London. It doesn't feel particularly Irish. Everyone you speak to seems to be either Eastern European or North African or Somali. All the taxi drivers are Africans. And it's like, are the Irish happy with this? Aren't they losing their identity? Aren't there issues of security? Aren't there issues of belonging? Who belongs here? These people who are turning up, these immigrants who have been given total rights. Not only rights to vote, to become citizens and to settle in Ireland, but rights also to claim welfare, to use their health system, to use their education system. They were milking Ireland for all it was worth, and it was starting to cost a lot of money. Now, it just carried on until the lockdown. 2019, 2020, Ireland goes into lockdown. And it wasn't like in England, John, where people like flaunted the rules. We had protests. In Ireland, it was a severe long-term lockdown. They locked down 3 times. We only locked down twice. And the government got a sense of power, absolute power in Ireland, John. They rule the roost, and the people were just like pawns in their game. And they thought, we've got these people where we want them now. They'll do anything we say. And let's move up the gear. Once the pandemic was over, let's move up the gear on immigration. Let's really open the floodgates. Not only bring the immigrants into the big cities, but let's put them out into the smaller towns and even the little villages, the little quaint Irish villages on the rivers, the River Liffey or whatever, in the Wicklow Mountains. A coachload of Somalis would turn up and just be dumped on the local people. And the local people started to look at these immigrants and think, these are all men. They're all fighting age men. They're all men with high testosterone. They're all men looking for sex, looking for money, looking for opportunities to enrich themselves, looking legal and illegal, looking for trouble. And the Irish started to feel very uncomfortable about this, John. Very, very uncomfortable. But nothing seemed to stir them. And then something happened recently, only in September, in a place called Eastwall in Dublin. Eastwall is like a neighbourhood, a bit of a poor neighbourhood in Dublin. And they just got sick of all these Africans and Middle Easters and Asians being dumped on them. They just got sick of it. And they said, we've had enough. And they tried to turn another school into a so-called asylum hostel. And the people just rose up and started to protest, John, in the streets. They just started protesting. And it gained momentum. And they were sick and tired that the local girls were being harassed by these, what they started to call rapefugees. And they just started campaigning against it. And I've got a friend who actually lives in Northern Ireland. He's from Dublin originally, Pat. And he said to me, Paul, the Irish are about to kick off. They've just had enough of it. And what happened in Eastwall was that the police tried to suppress it initially, but the people started marching and protesting, and more people got involved. And the anger was there. It was tangible. You've got to stop this inflow of bogus asylum seekers, of military-age men coming and being loaded in Ireland. And then all the villages where they were putting them into schools and village halls and stuff, they started to protest right across Ireland. There were marches and demos and speeches. And the media rubbished these people. They rubbished them. The people who stood up and said, we don't want our lifestyle destroyed by these refugees and immigrants. We want to preserve our way of life. These people have become they're a threat to us. They're not any benefit at all.
No, they don't feel, nobody will accept that these people commit crimes. None of the left will. All the time I've stood against the lefties, none of them will say anything. You know what I mean? Then all the poor people, well, they're not poor. And we know that the system is being abused as well as being open. It's being abused in an extreme way. So I think that the same 10,000 people protested in Dublin outside the Irish Times. They just had a thing up. And there's so many little demonstrations speaking. A couple of people have been arrested, and everybody who's saying something against it is just being branded far right, Paul. I've seen them all. Speeches, mums and dads speaking, and they're not, nobody's far right, but that's what they're being branded with. And obviously, the media are showing a biased portrayal of the Irish people when they're protesting. It's ridiculous.
When you look at these protesters, John, they're just ordinary people. It's obvious. There's nothing malicious in them at all. They're just fed up of being abused. You see, what they say, and this is the slogan they use: we're not far right, but we're right so far in what we're saying. Because what they're saying is that the government won't listen to them, won't even acknowledge that they've got an issue here. The government just lies to them and says, look, you know, Varadkar said last week that any failed asylum seekers are going to be sent home. It's just a blatant lie. None of them are being sent home. They're being brought in by the boatload and the plane load and the train load, and it's just escalating. Now, that's why there's so many people who got on the march. Initially, it was a few hundred, then it was a few thousand. As you said yesterday, John, it was 10,000 people marching through Dublin, and you should have seen their placards. And the people they brought in, supposedly be the Populist Party in Ireland, Sinn Féin, they're under attack as well because they're on the side of the invaders. The Irish are saying we're being invaded. It's a new plantation. We're going to be displaced in our own country and replaced. We're going to be dispossessed. And we don't want to lose Ireland. We love Ireland. We love the island we grew up in. It's got culture. It's got a feeling. It's got emotion. It's got a sense of belonging. We don't want it to be just swept away. And the people are bringing in from Somalia, from the Middle East, from sub-Saharan Africa, they all seem to be men, John. They're not families that are coming in. They're all fighting age men. And they're saying, is this an army? Is this an invading army taking over Ireland?
Don't forget, they've got a lot of Ukrainians who are all jet black as well. Just thought I'd mention that.
Well, the Ukrainians are coming over, and as you say, it's an international crew. A lot of them are Asians. I saw a big plane load of Ukrainians landed, and they were all Asians. And one of the guys asked him, said, "Where are you from?" He said, "Ukraine." He said, "You're not Ukrainians." "Yes, we are Ukrainians." "No, you're not Ukrainians." They were actually admitted in the end that they were all from somewhere in Pakistan. So it's absurd what's going on. But obviously, four things have come together here, John, which is really changing the picture. The first one is the cost of living. The Irish are being hit hard in the pocket. The prices over there have surged, and people's living standards are starting to fall. And they're watching these immigrants not only get hotels, this is another issue, they're getting the social housing.
Yeah.
The working class Irish people, because property is so expensive in Ireland, they're dependent on the social housing, and they're being excluded. And they're watching Somalis and Nigerians get their houses, and they're actually building new houses for these immigrants. So the Irish are incensed about this. Housing is a big issue, and they're not getting the houses. And this is not only happening in the big cities and the towns, it's happening in the villages as well. So you can imagine the whole community is being really riled by this. And that's why they're rising up in rebellion. Ireland for the Irish, Irish homes for Irish people.
So there was on Twitter a couple of days ago, there was a little clip, and some Irish MSPs they're all talking about it, and so the guy in the audience put his hand up and he said, 4 years ago we talked about this. You came and talked to us and all this lot, and we raised concerns there. Then he said, at this meeting were the far right, and everything they said at the meeting is now coming true. And then the first thing the woman says, she just comes out and says, "What should we be listening to the far right?" That's what she says. But they were right, Paul. That everything they said 4 years ago, he says, they were right. And this is an Irish guy, and gets shut down because, you know, he said the wrong thing, and it's ridiculous. You can't even say anything.
Anyone who speaks any sense now is branded fascist, racist, far right, Nazi. They're all just speaking sense. Well, what's happened is the actual established parties, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, they've become a bit like Labour and Conservatives. They've still both got the same messages now. Welcome these people. If you don't approve of them coming in, you're full of hate. We've got to become a new country. We need new immigrants and all that. And the Irish people saying this is all a lie. This is not what we want, and this is our country. At the end of the day, Ireland belongs to the Irish. It doesn't belong to the EU. It doesn't belong to anybody else. It belongs to the people who have lived there for centuries. And if they're not happy with what's going on, it should be stopped. But the politicians won't listen to them. This is the problem. Now, there are a few independent members of the Dáil, it's called over there, their parliament, who are speaking out on this issue, but they're few and far between. But what's actually happened, that I've noticed this on the rallies, John, at the end of these rallies, they're having speeches, and they get, it's the march leads to a rally. And the people who are speaking now, a lot of them are dissident Republicans, people who've broken off from Sinn Féin, because Sinn Féin has become globalist, it's pro-abortion, it's pro-immigration, it's pro-LGBT, it's anti-Irish. It's against traditional Ireland and traditional Catholic teachings. And this has disturbed a lot of Republicans. And they've seen that this populist uprising is a real Irish uprising. It's a rising of the people. So they're joining in with it, and they're organising it, and they're giving it a voice. That's very important. But it's also important to say this. The Catholic Church has betrayed the Irish people. The Catholic Church is on the side of Islam. It's on the side of the mass immigration. It's on the side of displacing and replacing the Irish people. The Catholic Church has betrayed the Irish people. The Catholic Church has been bought by the likes of Bill Gates. It's now a globalist international institution. Pope Francis at the top, and they're promoting a whole globalist agenda. And basically, they're prepared to see Ireland wiped out. So the Irish feel betrayed, not only by their traditional political parties, but by the people who traditionally represented them culturally. And the media as well, John. The media, as you pointed earlier, they marched the Irish Times. The media have just rubbished anyone who protests against this takeover of Ireland. They just abuse them and try and vilify them and demonize them. They won't listen to their genuine complaints and genuine fears. And all these people are doing, the Irish, is expressing the love of their country, expressing the fact that they want the nation that they were born into to be passed on to their children, not to be fragmented and taken over, but to be passed on, that they value their inheritance, they value their traditions, they value their people group, and they want to pass that on. And what's wrong with that, John?
Nothing, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. I mean, like you said, the protests are big, especially in the Dublin area. I'm not sure what's going on in the Northern Ireland section, but in Dublin recently, big protests. And it's shut people up, Paul. It's shut people up because they've recorded crimes. They've recorded that these men are waiting and chasing women and like not assaulting. They are assaulting them. There has been sexual assaults, rapes, and increasing crime. But all these guys are hanging around the corners, and I don't care who it is, but if it's bound to scare local people. And in the 90s, I went to Ireland, the early 90s, and we went. I think with Newry on the border, and then we went further into Ireland, and I didn't see any of this, mate. I didn't see any of this. I just saw beautiful black or golden-haired girls. You know what I mean, and stuff like that, and it's drastically changed.
Well, they're not only stalking the Irish girls, John, but I don't know if you saw it yesterday. There's been huge gang fights between different African gangs because it's becoming like London now. They're armed with machetes, and incredibly big knives, and they're fighting over like drug patches now. They're selling drugs, and they're stabbing people. People are being stabbed, largely stabbing each other, like in London. But it's brought a new ferocity to the street crime. Because although Ireland had the troubles, Ireland has actually always been a very peaceful place. The Irish are very placid people. They're fun-loving people, and you know, they're very friendly and hospitable people. This is the thing that's so disturbing. It takes a lot to get the Irish angry. But when the Irish get angry, John, it's like a volcano going off. They really let the anger out, and they're angry now, mate. I'm telling you. Now, you spoke about the North there. What's happening in the North? Well, this is the problem with Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin has got it like a grip on the Catholic community in the North, and they're globalist Sinn Féin. They're betraying Ireland. And a lot of Northern Catholics have recognised that now, and they've turned against Sinn Féin. But the Loyalists won't allow these bogus asylum seekers to come into their areas. They chased them out. There was a rape on Shankill Road the other day. 3 bogus asylum seekers raped a man. A man. I mean, they're very strange creatures, some of these people. And they're trying to put them up in hotels. Again, what you see in Britain, the government's taken over the hotels and putting the immigrants in these hotels. Now, in Northern Ireland, the former paramilitaries, they control the territory, but they've been bought off. The IRA being bought off by the government. They're giving money to protect these people who are coming in. But the local people, they can see it now. They can see the impact of it, and they don't want it. And I think the North will join in with the South. They'll join together. This is bringing unity in Ireland, because the 2 traditions in Ireland, which are both symbolised on the flag, the Greens and the Orange tradition, they're both under threat here. The ancient people of Ireland are under threat here. This is a takeover of their whole country. And Ireland hasn't got the population of Britain. I mean, we've got a population maybe over 55 million British people. And so we can absorb a lot of people, although we've been overwhelmed, and we have to stop it here as well. We have to rise up like the Irish, because we eventually will buckle as well. But the Irish, as I say, there was only 3.5 million people in the South. So you bring in 1 million immigrants, and everything is totally transformed. This is a dispossession going on. And why do you think, John, that the politicians won't listen to the anger of the people? All they do is deride the people.
They're not interested, though. They're none of them. It's like over here. They're not interested in what, like, working class people who make up the predominant percentage of Ireland, Scotland, and England. They're not even bothered about us. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter about them lowly people. What we say is the right thing. That's the right way to go. And they're all like that. They've all been like that for too long and stagnant. That's why we need them out.
Well, the truth is, who's paying them? Whose interests are they really serving? Because they're not, as you say, John, they're not serving the interests of the popular people. And therefore, the popular people have got to assert themselves. We still live in a democracy. Our vote is as good as anybody else. We choose our government, but we've got to stop listening to the media. This is the great thing about the uprising in Ireland. They've turned on the media. As you say, they marched the Irish Times, RTE, the Irish television station. They've marched on them, and they know that the media are the enemy. Just like the politicians are bought and paid for and serving somebody else. The media, which was once the tribune of the people, which once spoke for the people and expressed the popular will, the media is being bought again by the globalists, and it's just manipulating people. And of course, you've got another group of people, the NGOs, John. You know them? The NGOs, non-governmental organizations. They get funding off the government and off all sorts of billionaires like the likes of Soros, and they bring in these bogus asylum seekers. They're part of the operation to bring them in and to get them accommodation. They provide them with lawyers so they can't be deported, and they appeal any deportation, and they get them accommodation, and they get them the social housing, and they get them into the schools, and they work on behalf of the immigrants. And suddenly, the indigenous people, the people who we own this land, like the British own Britain, the Irish own Ireland. We suddenly find ourselves second-class citizens. And when we go into the hospitals, these Arabs and Africans and Asians are in front of us in the queue. Even though we've paid taxes our whole lives to finance these institutions, people have just swanned in through the border, go right to the front of the queue. And it's the same with social housing, and it's the same in education. They're ruining the schools. And it just, it's not on, John. It's like,
No,
hey,
it isn't.
we're going to destroy your way of life, whether you like it or not. And it's only the popular people have got to say, we're not prepared to take this. What do you think, John?
Honestly, yeah. They want to destroy us. And, you know, it'd be no use leaving Ireland out. They might as well get Ireland in the mixing pot as well. And there's hundreds and hundreds of posts about it all over TikTok videos and everything. And still the media are making it out like there's only 5 people protesting. You really couldn't make it up.
Well, that's the good thing about Twitter and social media. We can get the message out there. And we can expose these NGOs. We can expose these fake politicians. We can expose the lying media. And we can let people know the truth. And Twitter is fantastic now, because Twitter, you can say a lot on Twitter now. You can get the truth out there about what's really happening. And we've got a counter narrative now. We've got a different message. Time for the people to rise up. But they've got to get organised, John. Now, we've got the National Housing Party, the UK. We've got a political voice here, which will stand in elections, will articulate the fears and the wishes of the British people, and we will contest elections. The Irish people, it's good to march. It's great to have these rallies and speaks. I mean, you went to a rally in Glasgow, didn't you, over the weekend? But you need a political party. Do you see that emerging, John, in Ireland, a new political force?
Definitely. I mean, I want to go, Paul. I want to go to Dublin. I want to go now. I want to go yesterday and film some of the stuff that's going on, but also network and out flyers and stuff like that. And hopefully more people now in Ireland will be standing up to be independents and running in councils. I can't see it being any other way. People have got to be standing up now in Ireland, saying, look, it's wrong. I can do better. So let's hope for it.
It's interesting you say that you'd like to be in Dublin, because you know who went to Dublin today?
Who?
Tommy Robinson.
Did he? Oh.
He's over there now, and he's going to do it. He's staying in Ireland for a week. I spoke to activists over there last night. They're going to host him. He's going to get a platform over there, and people want to hear what he's got to say, because they're facing now these grooming gangs are starting to emerge in Ireland, and the Irish people want to know what they can do about it to stop it, and what dangers that they face. I mean, what a hero Tommy is, really. He's going in there, and I hope he got in today, because people said that he might be rejected at the airport. Someone said he'll probably have to go in through the north. I don't know if he's got in or not, but we'll find out tomorrow. Yeah, Tommy Robinson's over there. You should be over there, John, with your camera. I mean, you're a key man on these demos, you know.
But yeah, all over Ireland. We was looking at a little town before earlier on in the week where they had some protests. Somebody's been arrested and had a conviction for hate, apparently, who was speaking at one of the demos, at least one person. And they've caught out the police trying to infiltrate them. And they've confronted the media and said, how come you're not talking to us when the media were talking to the lefties? And they said, and then the guy's saying, look, you haven't even been over. You've just been here all the time. You haven't been over talking to us, and we're the people who live here. And then he points out that the lefties who were there didn't even live in that town. He said they don't even live here. And you're talking to them and not talking to us. So it is a hatchet job being done by the media and the politicians to brand everyone and just carry on flooding the country. But the Irish aren't having it. They're not having it. They're absolutely not having it. And I wish we'd see a bit more of this spirit, Paul, in the UK, right here in England.
You have to get the critical mass, John. And that's what's crucial in Ireland now. They have the numbers. Once you get in 10,000 on the streets, they can't just poo-poo you. They can't brush you aside. I mean, these counter demonstrators that they bus in, John, from other places, they're all members of the NGOs. They're all bought and paid for. And they all sing their inane songs like refugees are welcome here. And it's just like they won't listen to the concerns of the people. And the media are the same. As I said earlier, they're bought and paid for. What happens now is that all these NGOs and government institutions, they basically finance the media now. And the media just does their bidding. Now, the president of Ireland, a little old fella whose name escapes me at the moment, he come out the other day and said, these demonstrators who want to keep these asylum seekers out of Ireland, he said, they're hateful people. They're full of hate. And we must love the people coming into the country. These people are coming to cause trouble. They're coming to push drugs. They're coming to carry out all sorts of misdemeanors. And they're coming to take. They're abusing the Irish people. It's not the Irish people who are evil. It's these people who are abusing Ireland and the politicians who are bringing them in who are the real evil ones, John. And we've got to say that blatantly and right up front. So that's why the Irish people will not be cowed in this. And I tell you what, now that the dam has burst, really, there's a lot of and our hope is, John, that Ireland will be the catalyst for the whole of Europe to rise up. A catalyst. We look to Ireland and say, they've done it there. Let's do it here. I mean, there was a demo in Leeds, wasn't there, last week? There's demos in Britain now against. Don't forget, just as they're putting these military-age men in little villages in Ireland, they're doing exactly the same in Britain, putting them in nice little areas in the hotels, and they're just stalking the local girls and causing trouble. Well, what are these people doing here, John? Who are they? What did they want?
No, they're along for a ride and a load of freebies. That's all, and cause trouble. They know they can come here, rape, pillage, and burn, and get less punishment than they would do in their own country. You know what I mean? Honestly, it's just ridiculous. Nobody can say to me that all them men are fleeing war, all have mental health issues. They're not. And we know that because we know the past few, like 4 months, the majority of people coming over aren't even from people to do with refugees. That they're Albanians, South Americans, and people just not from them particular countries. And nobody will accept it. But, you know, there's a feeling on the ground, the feeling with the working classes that none of them want it. And all the people I talk to, nobody wants any of this.
Well, you know the politicians, right? The politicians are there to serve us, to look after our interests, to protect our welfare, to protect our children. The politician's role, it's analogous to a father in a family. They're there to look after their children and their family. Now, they're not there to look after the whole world. They're not there to take responsibility for the whole world. They're there to do a job. We pay them. We elect them. And if they're not looking after us, what's the point of them, John? What's the point of these politicians? They're just our enemies. They're just wrecking and destroying our lives. And we've got to vote them out, John. We've got to have new voices. We've got to get rid of them. When's that going to happen, John? Because it's got to happen. Because this can't go on. We can't go on destroying our countries because eventually that will start to crumble.
Well, they're looking at 1 million coming in. I don't know what time frame they've got on that, but I mean, the same things in Northern Ireland. Housing. The housing lists are eight. It says they're 8 years long or 6 years long in Ireland to get a decent house. And a lot of homes in Ireland haven't been worked on. They've not kept them up to date. So it's a continual working on the house. It's just not good enough, and they need proper housing just for the normal citizens. So they can't accept anyone in if the housing's terrible. But it's the same issues there that it is in England. And remember, it was Kemi Badenoch that said, we're never going to sort out housing until we sort out immigration. Now, that's what Kemi said. That's what Kemi said.
All the issues, the NHS, housing, education, they're all being overwhelmed by this immigration now. And all these politicians, I just see Varadkar there on the screen. They're just chanters, aren't they? They're not interested in looking after us. They're just lying in their own pockets. They're laughing at us. He's laughing there. They're mocking us, John. We're being mocked. We've got to rise up against it. The people have got to wake up. And people feel helpless, really, but you've got to vote. Vote for an alternative party. Vote for the National Housing Party of the UK if you have a chance. Vote for any alternative party. The thing about Ireland, which is different from Britain, John, is that they have PR over there. So a new party can stand and get votes and get into power very quickly. You see, over here with the first past the post system, the whole system is skewed, so there's only two parties. And the two parties have become like two cheeks of the same backside. Labour or Conservatives are now pushing the same agenda. They're both globalist parties. And it's hitting us in the pocket as well, John. We've got to face this. There's tough times ahead, you know.
Massively in the pocket, as well as the cost of living and all that. The billions that we spent already. It's just outrageous, and I'm sick of it, me. And I mean, a lot of the sentiment is now people are coming away from anything to do with Ukraine because the amount of money being spent, and it's just ridiculous, and we have to pay for all that. Remember, besides doing all that, we have to pay the wages of the people who really are screwing us over, Paul.
Why are the people patient so far in Britain? Why aren't we rising up, right? Now, one of the things is people are still buying into the media agenda. The media is still manipulating the people. They're saying the government will get it right. This is only temporary, these asylum seekers. They'll stop the boats. They'll stop this mass immigration. They won't. The people are going to have to face reality. We're in denial, John, aren't we? We're denying reality. Our cities are being taken over. Our welfare state is being destroyed. Our security, both on the streets and our national security, is being lost. Now, a lot of the people in Ireland, John, I don't know what your take on this is, they fear that the government are going to use these bogus asylum seekers as an army, that the military-age men, and they will be used to crush the Irish. If the Irish rise up, they will be armed and be used against the Irish. A lot of them have come from countries like Afghanistan and Somalia, where there's been a lot of warfare for a long time. So they've had military training. And a lot of the Irish are very wary about what's going on. What do you think about that, John?
Will they arm them all and say you're all Guardia and shoot? I don't think it's going to go that drastic myself, but these people are here now. They're going to be put into jobs. They're going to get first priority on the diversity list to have a job. So then the normal Irishman will go to the bottom now. He'll be at the bottom of the list. And these people will be priority. They'll get priority in healthcare, obviously housing. And I mean, in a year from now, I can imagine a year from now, Irish people, I can imagine the videos that they're doing and saying, why is this guy in this job? And you know, like, why have I lost my job? Why this person? They'll all be saying things like this. And these people who are coming over, they're not really vetted. We don't know anything about them. And they might be able to do the job, but are they the kind of person who should do the job? Probably not. So,
well, the truth is, John, the truth is they can't do the jobs. We're seeing this in Britain now. The welfare state's fallen to pieces. The public sector's fallen to pieces because people are being promoted basically on the basis of diversity rather than merit. So they're putting bum people into important jobs. And the system's fallen to pieces. And it's not that these people have arrived and that's it, things are going to change. They just keep coming. That's why people are panicking. If it had been a certain number, if it had been like 200,000 and stopped, people would have said, okay, we'll make this work. We don't want it, but we'll make it work. The truth is, this isn't going to stop. And people realize it now. This is full-scale dispossession of the Irish and British people and their replacement with people from the third world who have no claim on this country. It's atrocious, John. And we can't be in denial about this anymore. We've got to wake up. The British people, the Irish people, have got to wake up en masse and say, this is not about racism. This is not about race. This is not about fascism. It's not about political ideology. This is not about chauvinism. This is about reality. This is about living your life. This is about common sense and fair play. And this is about the future of our children and our security. This is insane what's going on, John. It's actually insane. And it's got to stop. And the politicians do not care. This is what you said earlier. They don't care about us and how our lives are being affected and how our children are being affected. They just don't care. The media don't care. And the NGOs have got their whole agenda. And the political parties have got their whole agenda. And they're just not listening to us. We've got to have new voices. This is why shows like this are important. This is why the National Housing Party, the UK, which is now galvanizing people, drawing people together, and other political parties are really important. We have got to be the voice of the people, John. We've got to be the tribune of the people. We've got to speak up on this. We put our head above the parapet and we've spoken out. And come on, British people, wake up.
Good evening, Craig. Lovely to see you again. Pat's in a bit late. Andrew, Lady J, thank you for tuning in. Please share everywhere. I really want to get to Ireland. That's where I should be doing over there, doing a couple of days filming. But I've just so much to do at the moment. But but no, it's ridiculous, Paul. And you know, nobody's lying. Nobody is being hateful. The people in Ireland are just concerned. And so they should be with the rising crime, some of the crimes that have been happening and stuff like that. And I've even seen that they think they've got child migrants being trafficked around Ireland or to do with Ireland now. That's what I've seen earlier on, a little report. And I wouldn't say that they're wrong, because since we've had this kind of immigration and illegals coming over, we've seen a massive rise in safety for proper child migrants who've gone missing into the trafficking system, and it's happening everywhere. No one's saying nothing, Paul. Nobody said. The lefties don't say anything, and the media don't say anything, but the Irish people are doing it well. They're confronting the media. They protested outside the Irish Times. Wherever there's something on or a debate or anything, they're there and they're saying the things to the people. So keep it up, Ireland. Please keep it up.
Well, I know a lot of the Irish people. I went over to Ireland in before the lockdown, 2019. I spoke at a rally in Dublin. And I met a lot of the Irish activists then who were concerned about wider other issues as well. But I know these people are totally committed. You see, the thing about the Irish is they've got this tradition of popular uprisings, going back to the likes of Daniel O'Connell and Michael Collins. Ireland for the Irish, that resonates. That's part of their history. Stop the plantations, that's part of their history. And they're using this language now, they're plugging into that tradition of rebellion. And that's what's going to fuel this in Ireland. That's what's going to make it so explosive. Because when the Irish blow, it's like a volcano. They won't be stopped. Now, you talked before about maybe they will use the immigrants, the military-age men who are coming over there as a force to stop them. But the Garda, the Irish police, are very reluctant to turn on their own people. I mean, I'm sure there are elements amongst the Garda that will turn on the Irish people. As you said before, they're trying to charge them now with hate crimes and so on. They'll try and criminalise protest. That's what that's about. Criminalise your democratic rights, but you've got to push back against it. And, you know, I would say to people, middle-class Irish people or Irish people in the ruling class, that, as I say, there are independent MPs who are speaking up for the Irish people. Reconnect with the popular voice. Reconnect with the working class people of Ireland, because you've got to save it together. If the Irish working class is swept away and replaced, the Irish middle class, they'll be isolated, they'll be vulnerable, they'll start to suffer crime as well. This is the thing, is they try and don't be divided on class lines. Don't be divided on sectarian lines, Protestant against Catholic or whatever. We've got, as a people, to stand up in a united manner. That's what the flag of Ireland should truly represent. Both traditions, green and orange, standing up together to defend the island of Ireland. And we need the Unionists in the north now, the British Unionists, to say, look, we're totally against this as well. We'll support the Irish in their battle. They've all got to come together, and they've got to change the politicians. They've got to start electing at local council level and at national level new politicians who are patriotic, who love their people, love their history, love their traditions, and love their country. This is the thing. They've got a heart for their nation. Now, we've got Varadkar, who's the Prime Minister of Ireland. We've got Rishi Sunak here, the Prime Minister of Britain. They don't love their country, because they're not really part of it. I mean, Rishi Sunak, he wanted to go and live in California. He didn't even want to stay in London. And Varadkar, he hops all over the world. He's a Sikh. His father's a Sikh. What do they really, truly care about our history and our heritage? Because we are ancient nations. We are ancient nations. We can absorb a certain number of people, a certain number of immigrants, and a lot of immigrants have mixed in. But this is overwhelming. This is an invasion. This is a takeover. And we've got to rise up against it. And what's happening in Ireland now is a popular uprising. The people have woken up. And it's a shock, John. It's a shock to the establishment. They didn't think this was happening. They thought the sheep had been totally made submissive during the whole lockdown episode, and they thought they could get away with murder. But the people have woke up again, and we've got a tradition in these countries, a deep democratic tradition, and the people have got to wake up again. In Britain, we've got to look to our brothers over in Ireland and say, this is the way forward. We want to see those demos in Britain. And we're getting them, John. They're starting now. We want to see an avalanche. We want to see an avalanche, not just for the drama of it, but to implement real change. Real change, John. What will that look like? Real change.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Right, we're coming up to our hour now, but thank you very much, Paul. Lovely words. And God bless the Irish. That's what I'm saying. Look, if you're not a church person, if you're in Ireland, we are thinking about you. And let's put it down to blood. I've got some percentage of Irish blood in me, so we are thinking of you guys over there. Keep up the strong work, and hopefully, I'll be over there soon myself.
Get over there, John. I'll probably come with you. Good night, John.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone in the chat. Please like and subscribe the channel, which is Pat's YouTube channel. I've been putting the links up for the party website in the chat as well. We want donations, guys. We want donations for leaflets. If you can afford something, please throw it in. You can go through the website on the donate button. But again, please share everywhere. And yeah, we are thinking of the Irish, you know what I mean? And God bless the Irish. That's what God bless the Irish. But, you know, keep it up, guys. You're doing well. And we're venomously watching you from over here. And again, the protests are rising over here a little bit. But thank you very much, everyone. Big John here. I'm not sure what I'll be doing Thursday. I'm on a strike, and I'm not sure if I'm off Thursday. I'll do something probably. But it'll just be a bit. I won't have any guests on, but I'll do something. But please like and subscribe to the channel. I put the link up in to our National Housing Party site several times, and I'll just go through our policy again on dual nationality. That's what I started off with, and I'll just finish off with that again. NHPUK campaign to end the right to have dual nationality in the UK. Having dual nationality is a conflict of interest for business, the military, and politics. Every UK citizen with dual nationality will be expected to choose which nationality is most important to them. Citizens who choose to keep their non-UK passports will then have to settle in that country, wherever it's from. Countries like China, Belarus, Malaysia have this policy in place. The only exemption will be for Ireland because of its historical links to the UK. And that is our dual nationality policy. But thank you very much, everyone. Please like and share, donate if you can. Thank you very much. And I'll catch up with you all soon.